What happens when a music legend sits down for what should be a lighthearted conversation only to find himself ambushed by a host determined to make him look foolish in front of millions? In just 35 seconds, a simple question about his recent successful tour would spiral into one of the most uncomfortable and shocking moments in daytime television history, exposing a host who seemed more interested in creating conflict than conducting an interview. This is the story of how Rod Stewart walked onto the Loose Women's set, expecting professional journalism, and instead found himself defending his dignity against a relentless barrage of personal attacks that left viewers stunned and the panel divided. The studio lights were warm and bright that afternoon, filled with the friendly chatter of an audience who clearly admired the man about to walk onto the stage. When Rod Stewart entered, the applause was loud, genuine, and affectionate. He walked with the easy confidence of someone who had spent decades in front of crowds. His smile relaxed, his tone light as he waved and took his seat across from the familiar panel of loose women. His intention was simple: discuss his new album, talk about his tour, maybe share a few humorous stories, and enjoy a pleasant interview. The atmosphere at first reflected exactly that. Ruth Langsford greeted Rod warmly, praising his recent tour and acknowledging his legacy with sincerity. The audience followed her tone, responding with approving cheers. Colleen Nolan smiled kindly, eager to engage, while Janet Streetporter prepared her notes with professional calm. The conversation began easily enough. Rod joked about the London traffic, teased the crew about studio lighting, and spoke about how much he enjoyed performing even after all these years. His signature raspy voice carried the casual charm fans loved him for. The audience laughed. The panel laughed. For a moment, everything felt perfectly smooth, just another friendly daytime chat. Then something shifted. Denise leaned forward, her posture tightening. The friendly tone disappeared, almost instantly as she interrupted the flow of conversation. "Rod, let's talk about your tour," she said. But her tone wasn't curious. It was sharp, targeted. "You're charging quite a lot for tickets, aren't you? Some people might say you're taking advantage of loyal fans. Fans who have supported you for decades, and now can't even afford to see you live anymore. How do you justify that?" The room stilled. The warmth evaporated as quickly as a flame snuffed out. Rod blinked, visibly taken off guard. He sat up straighter, adjusting his jacket. "Well, I wouldn't put it that way," he said carefully, choosing his words with the kind of calm that comes from long experience. "The cost of putting on a show these days, production, musicians, travel, it all adds up. We try to make sure the experience is worth every penny." But Denise wasn't finished. Not even close. Denise leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs slowly, as if preparing for a performance of her own. Her voice carried a rehearsed casualness, but there was a bite underneath every word. "But you're worth millions, Rod," she continued, her gaze fixed on him like a spotlight that offered no escape. "Some might say you have more than enough. Do you really need to squeeze every last pound from people who are already struggling with bills
And the cost of living?
ordinary people, your fans?" A murmur rippled through the audience. Not applause, not laughter. A quiet, uncomfortable shift, like air pressure changing before a storm. Rod's jaw tightened. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't snap back. He simply breathed in slowly, hands gripping the arms of the chair. "I have worked for 50 years in this industry," he replied, the rasp in his voice steady but edged with steel now. "I've earned what I have, and my shows cost what they cost because they are full productions. Live orchestra, lighting, hundreds of people involved. No one is being forced to attend. They come because they want the experience." Denise was unmoved. In fact, she smiled. A sharp, thin smile that did not reach her eyes. "But they come because they love you, Rod. And you know that," she said, the tone now almost accusatory. "You are exploiting that love. You're exploiting their loyalty. Fans who have stood by you for decades." The word exploiting hung in the air like a slap. Colleen's head snapped toward Denise, disbelief widening her eyes. Ruth opened her mouth to intervene, but Denise didn't give her the chance. She pressed forward, her momentum fueled by her own righteousness. "And speaking of loyalty," she continued, her voice now pointed and unmistakably personal, "let's talk about your marriages. 3 marriages, Rod. 3. Some would say that shows a lack of commitment. Some would say you walk away when things get difficult. Some would say. The audience gasped, collectively, loudly. Rod's face changed. Not to anger. Not at first. It was hurt. Wounded dignity. Something private being dragged into the harsh center of a public spotlight. That, Rod said quietly, has nothing to do with why I'm here. My personal life is not a punching bag. Oh, but it's public record, Denise replied quickly, leaning forward now, like a hunter closing distance with wounded prey. People have the right to know who they're supporting, don't they? Silence. Not the silence of calm. The silence of shock. Of something crossing a line. Of something that could not be taken back. Rod's expression shifted, the warmth gone, replaced now by a calm that was much more powerful than anger. He leaned back in his chair, as if grounding himself before speaking. I came here to talk about music, he said slowly. I came here in good faith, to celebrate something joyful. And instead, I'm being accused of taking advantage of fans and being judged on my personal relationships. You don't know the circumstances. You don't know anything beyond tabloid headlines. Ruth tried again to step in, her tone firm and maternal. Denise, that's not fair. This isn't the direction the interview was meant to go. We're here to have a respectful conversation. But Denise was already shaking her head, already turning the moment into something about her. People always say that when celebrities feel uncomfortable, respectful conversation, friendly environment, what that usually means is, don't ask real questions. Don't ask anything meaningful. Just sit there and smile at the famous person. Colleen stared at her, disbelief fading into something sharper. That's not what's happening, Denise. You're not asking meaningful questions. You're attacking him. There's a difference. And you know it. Denise snapped her head toward Colleen. So now you're defending him because he's charming? Because he's a legend? This is exactly why celebrities get away with everything. Get away with what? Rod's voice cut clean through the studio, stronger now. He stood slowly, not in anger, but in sheer refusal to be minimized. The studio lights caught the silver of his hair, making the moment feel almost theatrical. His voice was measured, but it resonated. What exactly have I done that requires being held accountable? He asked. I've paid every tax I owe. I support charities. I've worked nearly every year of my life. I've raised my children. I've brought joy to people through music for 5 decades. If there's a crime here, Denise, name it. Say it. Because all I'm hearing is resentment disguised as morality. The audience stirred, quiet murmurs, nods, shifting in seats. Denise's face reddened, her confidence trembling for the first time. You're being defensive. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe. These aren't tough questions, Rod interrupted. His voice now firmer, sharper. Tough questions are about the music industry, about creativity, about legacy. What you're doing is character assassination. Janet Street Porter, usually unbothered by chaos, finally spoke with the weary authority of someone who has seen decades of live television. This doesn't feel like journalism, she said softly. It feels personal. The audience clapped. Not wildly. Just long enough to make the point unmistakable. Rod remained standing, his hands relaxed at his sides now. Not clenched, not shaking. The audience watched him closely, a silent wave of empathy visible across their faces. Whatever Denise had intended by pushing him, it had not gone the way she expected. And when she spoke again, her voice carried a brittle edge, one that betrayed how unsteady she now felt. Oh, please, she said, forcing a laugh that no one joined. The dramatic walkout. The wounded pride act. You celebrities always do this. You'll be fine, Rod. You'll probably sell even more tickets now. Maybe this is exactly what you wanted. The crowd reacted immediately. A low, unmistakable sound rose like a tide, booing. Actual, vocal disapproval. Heavy and sharp, directed not at the guest, but at one of the hosts. It was rare, unscripted. The kind of moment that producers never want to see. Because once the audience makes up its mind, there's no pulling them back. Ruth looked at Denise in stunned disbelief, her face tightening with disappointment. Colleen's eyes had gone soft with apology, not toward Denise, but toward Rod. Janet stared down at her hands, shaking her head slowly, as if witnessing something that had gone far, beyond any reasonable boundary. Rod exhaled, not angrily, but with the gravity of someone who has made a decision. He reached down and unclipped his microphone, setting it carefully on the chair, not flung, not tossed, but placed with dignity. And that choice alone made the room even quieter. You know what the real shame is? Rod said, turning toward the audience, his voice steady and resonant. I actually like this show. I've watched it. I thought we'd have a bit of fun, maybe a laugh or two. But what happened here today wasn't conversation. It wasn't accountability. It wasn't journalism. It was cruelty dressed up as courage. Denise opened her mouth, but no sound came out this time. Rod turned to Ruth, Colleen, and Janet, nodding at each of them in quiet gratitude. Thank you for trying to keep this respectful. I know you didn't want this. He looked back at Denise one last time, not with anger, but with something far more cutting, clarity. I hope whatever point you were trying to make was worth it. Then he stepped away from the panel desk and began to walk off stage. The audience rose, not like a concert crowd, but like people who recognized dignity when they saw it. Applause followed him, not frenzied, but strong, steady, supportive. Denise sat still, staring forward, the weight of what had transpired finally settling over her. And Rod Stewart walked out, with his dignity intact,